Son.
Thank you, sir.
The human rights record of your administration has been widely condemned by the UN, Western countries, your own lawyers, international human rights bodies, for brutality and a stunning lack of accountability. Why does this go on in Nigeria? Why don't you get a grip on this?
I think there's been a lot of misrepresentation.
By all these groups?
Absolutely.
Really? Working in concert?
Well, I wouldn't know whether they're working in concert or they're working, alone. But I know for a fact that this administration in particular has been very sensitive to the issue of human rights. Sometimes terrorists, politicians, activists are confused with human rights.
So you put it all down to confusion?
I would do that because I do not know as a fact, and I've been a minister for almost 5 years, that there's any policy of my administration that's deliberately targeted at infringing on anybody's rights.
Minister, last September, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Summary or Arbitrary Executions, Agnes Kalamar, she launched a damning report on Nigeria, and the human rights abuses of your security forces. She spoke of countrywide patterns of abuses, include the police and military's excessive use of lethal force in violation of applicable international standards. I'm sure you read the report. She's not a person who makes these accusations lightly.
I did, but I would have been much more impressed if examples are given. Now, you must not forget that Nigeria has been locked in a war of attrition with the Boko Haram for almost a decade. And the kind of war we are fighting is a war amongst people. And even then, the military has been very careful to ensure that as much as possible, rights are not violated. Now, I've also read about reports of people who claim that their rights have been violated simply because they have been arrested by any of the security agencies and they've been asked to go through what I call due process. But I know that as a policy, this government does not violate anybody's right.
If it's not a matter of policy, why have there been so few investigations? The UN investigator spoke about the absence of effective investigations, the absence of meaningful prosecution, all of which are compounded, she said, by the lack of transparency over the vast majority of security issues. That accusation about lack of transparency and effective communication strategy goes straight to your door, Minister, doesn't it? You are the Minister of Information. Serious criticism here.
Well, I know as a fact that several cases of abuse of, rights, especially against soldiers, have not only been investigated, but people have been punished and have been made public.
How many? How many people have been punished?
I don't know offhand, but
You're the Minister of Information.
Well, of course, I can't know everything, but I know that the military also is very jealous of its reputation, and they have set up many, panels, and affected officers have either been dismissed or imprisoned.
The International Criminal Court isn't impressed by your record. It says in 2018 there was a reasonable basis to believe that the Nigerian security forces committed the war crimes of murder, torture, cruel treatment, outrages upon personal dignity, and intentionally directing attacks against the civilian population. But you have failed to cooperate with their investigators and failed to provide information that they requested. And if you take these things seriously, and you cannot but take the word of the International Criminal Court seriously, you would have provided that information. Why didn't you?
I wouldn't know what information they were asking for that was not provided. But I know that we've been cooperating with every agency, especially when it comes to...
But they say they weren't. They weren't getting help from you. They weren't getting the information.
I know that the ICC met with the authorities in Nigeria, and we would have no choice then but to cooperate.
They've been waiting for years to get your cooperation, and it hasn't come, Minister. Maybe you're out of the loop here.
What?
Maybe you don't have information about what's going on in your own government.
I'm very informed about what goes on in my government, and I'll say, actually, I do take the trouble to ask. And I'm not, like I say again, I'm not aware that we have withdrawn our cooperation from the ICC.
The UN Special Rapporteur speaks of countless allegations of excessive use of force by your police, in particular officers of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, or SARS. You said you wanted specific examples. These are specific examples. They've been accused of widespread torture, in some cases leading to deaths in custody and extrajudicial killings. So the unit is clearly out of control, isn't it? Because the UN Human Rights Committee warned your government to ensure that this group operates in accordance with international standards, because they don't trust that it's doing that at the moment. Why would that be?
Yes, I think I'm aware of that. And at a point in time when the report came out, the SARS was disbanded and only to be reconstituted, and, warned that henceforth they must ensure that they operate within the confines of the law.
Your own National Human Rights Commission investigated their activities. It even held public hearings, but the results were never published. Why?
I'm not aware that I'm not aware that the results were not published. I'm not aware.
But the assumption has to be that you're covering up damaging evidence, doesn't it, which you're afraid to make public?
I don't think we are covering up any damaging evidence. Some policemen were dismissed. The entire SARS was disbanded and reorganized thereafter.
Minister, on the question of providing information to outside investigators, you failed to provide information to the UN under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Nigeria has signed. Last August, the treaty body accused you of failing to honour your reporting obligations under Article 40 of the Covenant and ignoring numerous reminders to do so. Why is that, when you tell me you're cooperating so openly with these bodies? Why would they say that if it wasn't true?
I wouldn't know why they would say that, but I know that we have never shunned any international organization. We are very open.
As much as possible
for any country who is, waging an internal, who's fighting internal, insurgency. We're very open, and we operate within international, regulations and laws.
Well, clearly you don't, according to the bodies that monitor these situations.
Well, it depends on from which perspective they get the information.
Well, they're getting it from different perspectives, aren't they? And we're talking about human rights organizations, international human rights organizations. We're talking about the UN. We're talking about all kinds of bodies, the International Criminal Court. They're all saying the same thing, that you're not cooperating. And you sit here in front of me, Minister, and say that that's simply not true. It's like saying it's darkness outside when we can see it's daylight.
No, I think that analogy is not correct. I know that daily we receive, we entertain, and we engage all these bodies as a government.
And you're not going to move from that version, despite the evidence that I have quoted to you.
I'm yet to see any evidence that that is.
It's all there in black and white in the official reports.
That I've not responded to. When you talked about SARS, yes, I admitted that yes, we received the report and we took action.